Hello and welcome back to All Four Wins Football. What a weekend. Lots of things to talk about, lots of things to go through. 7 days we will be running through all of the things that are happening, as well as keeping up to date with everything that's happening in the Ballon d'Or. So we'll be back on the other side of this. Yes, good evening, welcome. Lots going on in the Ballon d'Or. We are going to be talking about those things as well. We should probably kick off with that for the most part, but it would be churlish, I think, of me not to mention the really big news that happened over the weekend, and we will be focusing more at that at the end of the show, so that we can get the best out of what we're trying to do over the next hour or so. But of course, the sad passing of Matt Beard, I think, has hit a lot of people a lot harder than perhaps we would have expected it to. Certainly with the sudden nature within which that's happened. He was a man who obviously did a lot for women's football and was an incredible giant of the game in terms of what he did and what he stood for. But I think the big thing over the weekend has been hearing just how kind he is and what a person he was more than anything else. And we will certainly look back a little bit at some of our own memories and thoughts of Matt Beard at the end of the show. But yes, terrible news, and certainly something that we needed to begin with. But we do have a show that we want to run through, and so we'll try and do that, because ultimately, let's be honest, the one thing that Matt Beard stood for was women's football and the growth of the game. So let's have a little moment to do that, and we are going to talk just briefly, I think, about the awards that have already been given in the Ballon d'Or. 2 for the ladies thus far. Vicky Lopez winning the Young Player of the Year, and Sarina Wiegman is apparently Coach of the Year as well, whilst also going on with what seems like a very good speech indeed. Sean, lovely to have you back. Question 1, how's your knee? Question 2, what do you reckon to those awards?
Knee's okay. I mean, we're a week post-surgery. The stronger stuff I've now run out of, and I was really enjoying the stronger stuff. But now the weak stuff isn't really doing much. But no, crutches are fine, all that. I feel like I'm a terrible person to actually start the Ballon d'Or with, because I only have a couple of words muted on Twitter, right? I've got England as a muted word on Twitter. I've got Lioness is muted on Twitter, and I've got Ballon d'Or muted, because I could not care less about the Ballon d'Or and any award that's given. I think individual awards in a team sport are absolutely ridiculous. It's a glorified thing. Like Rio Ferdinand, Ballon d'Or. I don't care. I do not care. Like, yeah, well done. Have your award or whatever, but football's a team sport, and I care about team awards, and I care about trophies and stories about a team. So it's a terrible way to start. I'm sure Rob and Liberty have far more salient and better points than I do. But honestly, Barry, I could not give one single monkeys about the Ballon d'Or and any award in it.
So what Barry's learned there is that you probably shouldn't start with Sean whenever it comes to these sort of things. But I will rephrase the question, because I'm determined to get something out of you with regards to this. Who do you think had the better year? Would it have been Rennie Slagers, or would it have been Sarina Wiegman?
I don't know. One's won a Champions League against the odds. One won a Euros against the odds. Sonia Bonpastor went a whole domestic season unbeaten. That's quite impressive. I don't know. I'm loath to praise England or Arsenal, to be fair. So I'll just say, I know she's not nominated. Let's go Rhian Wilkinson for getting Wales to her first major competition. She's very not there, and there's a robbery for you. So
very impressive. Fair play to you. Only you could come out with something entirely not what I said, but well done. Good job, Rob. Listen, we all know that this is a glorified popularity contest in so many ways, but ultimately they still are, I would imagine for the people, something that they are very, very proud to get. Would you agree that Vicky Lopez has had an incredibly good season? And how are you feeling with Serena getting Coach of the Year ahead of Sonia and Renee?
I mean, I'll start on I'll start firstly on the Copper Trophy. The Copper Trophy, I think I came on before and I said that this was the one tournament where I agreed all 5 of the nominees, there were strong arguments for them. And to be honest, I think Vicky Lopez winning it is probably fair. Looking at the sort of vote breakdown, I think it's not really a surprise to see Claudia Martinez finish last out of the 5. I think Adjuman obviously had a great Euros, but it's one of those things that if journalists didn't watch the Euros, they didn't see much of her in the year. Conversely, Vika Kaptein didn't have a brilliant Euros, but played a lot for Chelsea in the season, and you might have seen her involved in that. Linda Caicedo is Linda Caicedo, and pretty much if Real Madrid had a good game, she was involved in it. And I think Vicky Lopez had a bonkers first season, or full season. I think that 18, 19, and sort of double figures, well into double figures for goals and assists, scoring for the national team as well, and impressing at the tournaments. That's fine. As the Coach of the Year, again, it's one of those, you're always going to upset people. I think as soon as Serena Wiegmann went back in the Euros, she was going to win it. I think it's also worth acknowledging in between that she did get England to a World Cup final. I know you aren't led to look at historic achievements in this equation, but I think all of the nominees again, I think were valid arguments, but I think as soon as England did that, it was going to be that because it's the most known name. And I've said this before, I said this previously, that I think name counts for a lot in this and reputation, because there are some journalists, and it reminds me of a few years ago where a journalist tried to vote for Sam Kerr even though she'd done her ACL for the year because they knew she was on the cover of the EA Sports game. It's stuff like that I don't think helps. I personally think that the criteria for judging it should be a lot stricter, and you should have to actually pass a knowledge test effectively in order to do it, even if that makes the pool for judging it smaller. You should have to pass a knowledge test to show you actually know enough about not just the one particular league, but about the world sport in general, as you're meant to be crowning the best player in the world, not just the player you happen to see the most on the back of a newspaper.
No, completely agree there. And Liberty, same question to you. Vicky and Serena, content with those as choices?
Just to add, Hannah Hampton's just won the goalkeeper award.
I mean, I did see that down the bottom.
Seeing Mary Earps have to hand it over to her on the day that Earps has announced her autobiography, and allegedly in it she's going to deal with her feud with Hannah Hampton, is one of the funniest bits of design ever. Give them, kudos to whoever in, whichever brilliant showmaker has decided that's the plan. But
well, you can add that in there as well. Hannah winning it. What do you reckon?
Hannah deserved. I wouldn't argue really any other goalkeeper. To be honest, I think all the other goalkeeping choices are incredible and excellent. Obviously, Daphne's brilliant goalkeeper won us the Champions League by keeping us in that game, in the final. And Katrin Berger is sensational, but I think the issue with her is people don't watch the NWSL. The people who are voting for these things aren't watching her week in, week out in the NWSL, so I think that's going to be a disadvantage to her. Hannah obviously won the treble, won the Euros, and also I would argue in some of those Chelsea games especially kept Chelsea in them and was the reason why they either got a point or got 3 points. I think Chelsea would be nothing without Hannah Hampton. That's goalkeepers out the way. I'm the only one I genuinely would argue I don't appreciate who won is manager. And I get that, Serena won the Euros, absolutely fair and square, have no issues with that. Brilliant achievement, and she's a very good coach, but unfortunately she sort of had it, other than the loss to France and I guess the comebacks, but really England should have been in those a bit more than they were. She didn't really have a hard run of it, to be honest. I think if you take the whole argument of the Ballon d'Or is it's a whole year. Well, actually, Serena's won it based off of the Euros, which I think isn't very fair, because actually before that, England were not playing the best football at all. And so realistically, is that fair that she's basically won it off of the Euros? In my opinion, no, because it's not the same because England don't just play. I nearly said cricket. Sorry, football in the summer. They've played Spain twice before the final. They played. Who else did they play? Belgium and Portugal. And some of those games, I thought, oh my god, I'm going to turn the TV off. This is dreadful. My eyes hurt. So I think potentially Renee should have won it purely for what she did with Arsenal in the whole year over the span we're looking at. She took over a team that were so like their tails were so between their legs. It was genuinely dreadful. Took them over and was interim for not half the time, 3 months of the time. Topped their Euros. Sorry, my brain is all over the place. Topped their Champions League group despite that heavy first loss. Then had the 2 comebacks in the knockouts against Real Madrid and Lyon, which I think is quite underappreciated in this all because she ends up winning the whole thing. That you have to be a very good manager and tactician to do that. And I realize there's a whole team behind her. I'm not saying this was all her, but you have to have the ability to say, okay, this is what we want, this is what we're going to do, and do that. And so I think, and then she won the whole thing. She got the tactics right in that final that other managers didn't, especially in the Champions League. I mean, for a manager, if we think about it in comparison to Sonia Bonpastor, unbelievable season for Chelsea, but does not get those tactic rights in those Barcelona games, and that in comparison, in direct WSL comparison, it's like night and day, isn't it? So I think Renee should have won that, and I actually have no issue with Vicky Lopez winning it because of my previous argument about the whole year. Yes, Michelle had a very good Euros, but she didn't have a really good year before that. Whereas Vicky Lopez was consistently getting minutes for Barcelona, consistently playing, having these big goals, and she's just an incredibly talented kid. And bless her heart, saying that she's dedicating her award to her mother, who's sadly passed on when she was much younger. Just absolutely in a weekend of very sad times, nearly reduced me to tears. Bless her heart. So young, and having the strength to stand up there and say this is for my mother who's no longer here is just unbelievable. And somebody said, how am I feeling after the Hammarby result? This is the only time I'm actually going to mention them all night because I'm really sad. I've had a dreadful weekend of the football. 2 Arsenal draws, and then Hammarby lost the derby against Djurgården. I've been practicing that one. I hope that's okay for me. I haven't been practicing all week. In the last minute of added time, of injury time, and I'm like, but yeah, and that's all I have to say. Yeah.
God bless her.
Can I just quickly?
I just wanted to say Liberty came off the show last week, and I don't know if anybody's ever watched Harry Potter, but it was really giving Dobby because she was coming off like, I must do better. At one point, I thought her head was going to go through the window. It was a little bit scary. So I'm pleased to hear that all is well and there is no head through the window and she's all good. Go on, Rob. What you got to add?
Can I just say it was lovely during Hannah Hampton's speech to see her tribute to Matt Beard and see her reference, Matt Beard. Obviously, I think there were a lot of players over the weekend that I think showed immense courage across the WSL. Even if, obviously, I think the Liverpool game being suspended was the right thing, but there were a lot of players that would have either, in some cases shared a dressing room with him, in other cases known him well, and in some cases, started their career with him. Or have major parts in their career, a la Lucy Bronze, who clearly were very emotional on the day. And I think there's great courage, especially to the likes of Taylor Hines and Olivia Smith, for being able to go out and play when their minds are obviously going to be elsewhere, and completely understandably.
Correct. Now, Sean, you've been sat there very quiet. I won't ask you about the Ballon d'Or, but tell us a little bit about Hannah Hampton. What sort of goalkeeper do you think she is? Potentially the best in the world?
I would say so. At the minute, even yesterday against Leicester, we can talk about the Chelsea performance and how Chelsea are playing at the minute. I think there's a whole debate to be had about that. But the fact that she's still pulling out saves. To be so switched on and to be so ready, despite being in the most dominant team in the land, like to not switch off during the 90 minutes when sometimes she really doesn't have anything to do until 1 minute, and then she pulls off a worldy save. Yeah, not many keepers have that that clutch gene, and we saw in the summer that she's had it. And yeah, I've also just read that the Brighton keeper Shamaka Nandozi was nominated. I just think it's quite funny to see Brighton on the list of all those awards, which is quite funny. But yeah, I don't think you can argue that Hannah Hampton's the best goalkeeper in the world at the minute. I don't. I think she's a clear first. I don't think anyone comes close to second, potentially, in the world at the minute. So, yeah, no, Hannah Hampton, clearly, for me, number one goalkeeper in the world.
Excellent stuff. Well, we're going to move on to the Champions League. Obviously, we'll keep you updated. I say we'll keep you updated. Someone will probably put in the chat what's happening. Then Liberty is here, and then eventually BBC will catch up and let me know that they're not just putting an egg. So that'll be good. But obviously, I wanted to talk about the fact that the draw has now been made. We know who is going to make up the Champions League this season, and I think it's quite an eclectic group that we've got there. Obviously, we've got Arsenal, Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Benfica, Chelsea, Twente, Juventus, Man United, it's Leuven, Lyon, Paris FC, Paris Saint-Germain, Real Madrid, Roma, St. Pölten, the Valerenga girls, and VfL Wolfsburg. So lots of good teams there. Lots of interesting matches that have been pulled out of the hat. Certainly match day one. Some doozies there. Arsenal against Lyon, I think, is going to be an absolute banger, along with Barcelona and Bayern Munich, for sure. There's some great ones. Sean, we'll kick off with you again on this one. Are you excited about the Champions League games that have been coming out? Do you think it's going to be good under this format? Because it's the first time, obviously, we've had this format. But I'll be honest, I'm excited, obviously, because it's nice to see Man United in there for once. But it looks like it's going to be quite a good tournament.
Yeah, definitely. I think there was rightful scepticism about when the men's Champions League changed a year ago about the league format, if it was going to make things more exciting. At the start, it doesn't. But once we get to like match day 5 and match day 6, I think we'll see a real excitement and a real buzz around it. So these early games will be a bit hit and miss. We'll probably see some, maybe 1 or 2 surprise results. But when we get to the final 2 games, I think everyone will be like, good format. In terms of the games, yeah, here's a draw. Some good teams are going to play good teams. Medium teams are going to play some medium teams. And lesser media teams are going to play some lesser medium teams. Some interesting. I'm really looking forward to Arsenal-Lyon. Obviously, Lyon will want a bit of revenge from last season, but they are a much better team now. I think their summer business has been absolutely incredible, to be honest. I think the strength and depth they've got now, I think they are rightful Champions League favourites, and by a distance as well. I'm really intrigued to see what Barcelona do on a European stage. I think even with a depleted squad and not much depth, that they can still walk Liga F. But when they come to face the likes of Chelsea and I think it's Bayern Munich they've got in pot 1 as well, I'm really interested to see that one, because I think Bayern are going to be a lot better of an opposition this year. I think you look at that midfield, a potential midfield 3 of Oberdorf, Stanway and Pernilla Harder. That is a very, very good midfield. Good to see Man United in there for you, Barry, I'm sure. It's good to see some teams actually playing in the main stadiums as well. Some teams you wouldn't expect. It's good to see that Bayern have moved that Arsenal game to the Allianz Arena. It's really good to see Juventus as well move that United game to their Allianz Stadium as well. And I'm really hoping that the likes of, I think Juventus fans in particular, I think Bayern fans have shown they can come out in force when needed to. I mean, that opening game against Leverkusen was a stunning spectacle, just from a stadium point of view. And I really hope that rubs off on Juventus as well, because I think if you get that stadium bouncing, I think it's a really good atmosphere and a really good test for Man United. But ask me in match day 5, and I'm sure we'll all be more excited. But at the minute, it's just a draw's a draw.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just a draw at the end of the day, and we do need to see a little bit more about it. Rob, obviously Chelsea in it once again. It's going to be quite I think, a big season in terms of Europe. Will this be the year that Chelsea finally get their hands on it? Do you think the format?
Well, no, it's not going to be. It's not going to be the year. I've just accepted it's never happening. So this and then because usually when I predict something happens, it doesn't happen. So I've just accepted it's never going to happen. Same way I predict us not to win the title again this year. But no, it's I think, to be honest, and I said this to someone, I think Chelsea have got a relatively kind draw on paper. Obviously, two things to caveat. Number one, this is the Champions League. Every team is there on merit. Number two, there's no such thing as an easy fixture. But a lot of the games you're looking at, I don't think AS Roma is as strong as they have been historically. I think they've lost, key players. One of them is currently, chained to the Bayern Munich bench for no apparent reason. Obviously, Bolton and Twente will present their own sort of challenges, but again, you'd expect Chelsea to sort of to see them off. I don't think Wolfsburg, Wolfsburg signed about 40 million players and let 40 million players go in the summer, but they don't quite look the same strength as they were historically. Put it this way, I don't think they've still got a striker on the level of the likes of an Eva Payol or someone like that. Just thought I'd get a Payol mention there for Liberty, because I know she hasn't, be annoyed to not see her getting mentioned enough during the Ballon d'Or conversations. I think that Barcelona are Barcelona, and ultimately it'll be really interesting to see how Chelsea approach a one-off game against them, because I have a horrible, horrible feeling that Chelsea will be able to, in a one-off game, and I think this is what Arsenal proved in the final, in a one-off game they're beatable. I think over 2 legs they still have the ability to do it, because they can have a poor game. Excellent. Well, Wolfsburg are dreadful. And then who is the final? There's someone else I've missed from our group. It's, I think, someone in pot 2 seed. Paris FC, who we, again, perennially in every Champions League that they qualify for, we seem to play Paris FC, we seem to play Roma, we play Wolfsburg every single. I think it's contractually written in every time Wolfsburg and Barcelona qualify, we have to play them at least once. Be nice to play Twente again, because Vika Captain gets an absolutely wonderful reception every time she comes back. But yeah, no, generally quite happy with it. I think, to be honest, both Arsenal and Chelsea will look at it and say quite comfortably we can get through the league phase, and sort of it'll be a debate as to whether they can get through in those. I think the top 4 spots avoid the extra playoff game, but even then, I think the extra playoff game, a lot of the teams you'll look at in that extra playoff are going to be, with the exception of 1 or 2 of them, teams that you'd expect, the likes of Arsenal and Chelsea to beat. So I think they'll both be quietly quite happy. As for Manchester United, I think it's not a horrendous draw, but it's a lot of tough games. And I think the way the fixtures have fallen is quite horrible. I think I saw that you've got Wolfsburg, then the Manchester Derby, and then PSG, or possibly PSG, then the Manchester Derby, then Wolfsburg. That is not like a fun, interesting game. It'll be really fascinating actually to see just on a wider point of view, the reception Mary Earps gets. It'll be fascinating to see it, because I think it'll be really, really mixed, a bit like with Russo's reception when she came back at the weekend.
I tend to agree with that. I've got to be honest, that'll be a very, very, very interesting moment indeed. Liberty, will come to you as well for your thoughts on the Champions League draw as it is as well. We've got to throw this question out there as well, as our sort of resident Arsenal expert there as well. Can we talk about why Arsenal playing their group stage games at Boreham Wood, with there been such the fanfare of generally all of the home games being played at the Emirates? Why do you think it is, or do you know why it is they've chosen to play the group stage matches at Boreham Wood? And also your general thoughts on how you think the Champions League is going to go. Are you looking forward to the format, and do you think it will suit Arsenal?
I have so many thoughts First off, Arsenal women have just won Club of the Year. I'm trying to keep up whilst doing this, so I apologise if I seem distracted, but curiosity killed the cat, and I'm too curious to not keep up. And also, before Everpayol won the Best Striker award with Victor Gokaresh, which is hilarious if you know literally anything about me. Right. Arsenal playing at Bournemouth because, one, they're still in a contract with Bournemouth Football Club to rent out these grounds, and I'm of the understanding that they have to play a certain amount there to uphold their half of the deal, and they decided to play the Champions League games there instead of at the Emirates because they don't believe that the Champions League games are getting enough of a crowd in on those Wednesday, Thursday nights. So they decided to play all the WSL games at the Emirates and the Champions League ones at Bournemouth. And also, I think there is a thing to say about how the atmosphere of that Bayern Munich game was incredible and potentially did help Arsenal in that tie, especially when sort of the chips were down and it was hard and the weather was dreadful. But having that sort of atmosphere at Bournemouth probably helped. I'm not the biggest Bournemouth fan, so personally, I'm not particularly fond of it. I think Champions League deserves the biggest of stages, so I think that all Champions League games should be played in the big stadiums, and that does include Old Trafford. I also am of the opinion that Man United and Man City, let me say, both the Manchester team should play in the big stadiums more. You should be playing all of your top three. Obviously, you can't include yourself games in the big stadiums, and the fact that both City and United have put at least Arsenal in LSV and the Joy Stadium once again this season for the biggest of games is not great in my eyes. Arsenal's draw I find very interesting because it is a lot of the same as last season. Obviously, Lyon again, Real Madrid again, and Bayern again. I think it's going to be a test of, as one of the boys was saying, apologies, I don't know which one of you it was now, but one of you just said the difference between, it was Rob. He was talking about Barcelona, but in terms of Arsenal playing those one-offs and what that actually looks like, because both of those, Lyon and all three of them, Bayern, Lyon and Real Madrid, Arsenal lost the first leg and then won the second leg. And so it's interesting what that is going to look like as a one-off. It happens on the night. I think from an Arsenal point of view, the other three fixtures are actually more interesting. I think what does Arsenal do against Twente and what that looks like, because the last time Arsenal played a Dutch team was Ajax in 22-23 in the qualifiers, and that's it. There is nothing else, and obviously they're not playing Ajax, they're playing Twente, and it's going to be a different team. So that's interesting. Benfica is also really interesting. I think a team that does really, really well in their league, but has also done quite well in the groups. Well, in the previous group stages of the Champions League, that 3-3 draw with Barcelona rings out in my mind. That was one of the craziest group stage games I've ever seen, with the Lucy Bronze own goal and like the whole shebang. So that's a really interesting prospect for them to be playing Benfica away in Lisbon, back to Lisbon so soon. And who's the other team we're playing? 4-4. Thank you. Not even 3-3, 4-4. This is even crazier. Who else are we playing? Guys, I'm like, and who else are we playing?
Just looking, you got Lyon, you got Benfica, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid.
How could you forget Real Madrid?
I said Real Madrid.
And Leuven.
Oh, Leuven.
Oh, yes, Leuven. The first Belgian team to get to the proper stages of the Champions League, as I learned yesterday. Congratulations to them. That's also another challenge because you'd expect something of them to be a bit more conservative in the football they're playing, purely from a standpoint of the difference in squads. But at the same time, there's nothing to lose. It's one-off game, so they may just go balls through the wall and go for it. It's complete unknown, and that's so exciting, especially because, once again, as I just said, it'll be their first time in the Champions League proper. And the really cute video of them reacting to their Champions League draw was so cute. And people being like, why are they celebrating? Well, you want to be playing the best. No matter what, you want to be playing the best. And they got Barcelona and Arsenal, like, fairs on them. I think I agree with the points about Wolfsburg not being the same team as they were. They've had so much change, and yet they've got a new manager, and still he seems to be playing basically the same team despite all the changes. It took them until the 90+6th minute yesterday to get a winner, and it came from a centre back who's just come back from injury. I think that the prospect of playing Bayern for any team at the moment is really interesting as well, because they can't get a goal for the life of them, held to a 0-0 at the weekend by Carl Sainz Jenner, who are a team that are probably going to be in a relegation scrap again. They were last season, they probably will be again this season. That's just how life is. And so the idea that Bayern are struggling for goals, they've got players on the bench who are bench riding, who have proven goal scorers, and instead he's subbing on defenders and defensive midfielders instead of attackers. Confuses me. Also, another new manager. So what's that going to look like in Champions League football? And yeah, I think, look, at the end of the day, I genuinely think this is anyone's. I can't tell you who I think is going to top that league table when all the games are said and done, because I think it's anyone's for the taking. I really am. And I think even from a United point of view, I think they could get a good enough run of games to get some good points and maybe end up in those playoff places. The thing letting United down compared to Chelsea or Arsenal or Bayern or Wolfsburg or literally basically anyone else is the squad size. And if you keep having, like, we don't know how long Millie Turner's going to be out. Well, that's one of your centre-backs immediately gone. So then you have to play Janssen in the back. Then you've got no extra option in midfield. It's all a bit like that. But yeah, I think it's going to be the most interest. I mean, if we compare it to the men's first league table from last season, that was the most interesting men's Champions League run in a while, because literally it got to the end and Liverpool suddenly were dropping points for really no reason, but they'd already done it, and then they were complaining about their draw, but it was because of where their league was. And it's like so everything, as Rob said, everything has got something to do. So yeah, I think it's interesting, and I think Barry's now going to make me talk about the Europa Cup draw, and I really don't want to, but yeah.
The good news is no, we weren't planning on jumping into the Europa Cup. There's too many things to talk about this time. And poor old Hamilton with their last ball.
If we're not going to talk about it, can I quickly say, of course, the two teams that United knocked out play each other, and other than Frankfurt, I genuinely think that we have potentially the hardest draw. And somebody on Twitter said to me, who's going to have the most Norwegians in the squad compared to a Norwegian team and a Swedish team with 1,000 Norwegians in it, which just really made me laugh. But yeah, if we're not going to talk about it, we've got a really hard draw, and I'm really nervous.
You'll be fine, Liberty. It'll be very interesting to see how it goes. Second round of qualifying, I'm sure we will talk about that in a couple of weeks when we get to those games happening. There's 2 legs, remember, so we will get the chance to talk about that. And of course, you mentioned a couple of the other awards that have come out now. Emma Pahor, you just mentioned, getting the Striker of the Year, and Arsenal being the Team of the Year. And it's a nice time just to take a brief break to talk about awards, because I'm delighted to say that All Women's Football has indeed been nominated for the Football Content Awards this year, and I'm very proud of that because it's something that we've worked quite hard towards. Last season we were nominated as well, and I was quite proud of that, but not as proud as I am this year, because this year has very much been a case of me having to take this on and seeing what we could do with it. And I'm very thankful to the three people that are sat here, and also to Freya, who is not sat here because she's currently sat around a pool having a rather wonderful holiday. She sent me a picture of that pool. I feel incredibly jealous, but she's well deserved. So yeah, I wanted to say a massive thank you to the likes of Liberty, to Sean, and to Rob, and to Freya for the effort they put in, coming in week after week when they can, to just give superb insight into women's football. Liberty's knowledge is far beyond anything I think I can ever dream of getting. Sean's knowledge is absolutely superb as well, beaten probably only by his hatred for all things English. And of course, Rob has got superb knowledge as well, not just from Chelsea, but of course from all across women's football through the work that he does in his journalism. Of course, there's lots of other things we do here on this channel. We try and do the lower league lingo. So people like John and Gareth, who have helped me with that weekly, as we try and shine a spotlight on the lower leagues around England as well. It has been superb, and of course Stu jumping in on that as well. So a massive thank you to everybody who has been a part of that. Just being nominated is a massive win for us, and being accepted into the shortlist. So absolutely brilliant. If you did fancy having a little vote, this came up earlier accidentally because I wanted to ask you to like and subscribe. But if you get the opportunity and you feel so guided, please do jump over to the Football Content Awards and feel free to have a little vote for us. You can also vote for us on Instagram, which would be mad because we don't have an Instagram page yet, because if you tried updating just TikTok and Twitter and running YouTube shows, it's a lot. I don't know how Connor does it over on the other side. I really don't. But you could also go over to there as well. So we are in the Content Awards for that, and we are the best in, or even the group that we're in is in the best in creators, not organizations. So please do, if you feel like it, come and have a go. Thank you very much, Connor. We have tried very hard to do so. So there we go. And of course, good luck to Hammerby is a good thing to say as well. So thank you all. And with that in mind, we will progress smoothly, because Liberty was talking a little bit there about how Manchester United should have Arsenal coming to Old Trafford, and I quite agree. I do think that the big teams probably should be starting to use their bigger stadiums now. I think there is more chance, and Arsenal have proven that you can get they're quadrupling what they would get at Boreham Wood most weeks, to be fair. So Sean, let's just have a quick run through on the WSL, because it was quite big this weekend. Obviously Chelsea got the 1-0 win and set themselves to the top of the table. Manchester United, they managed to hold Champions League winners Arsenal to a 0-0 draw, which I've got to be honest, gives me a lot of positivity moving into the Champions League. And of course, London City Lionesses also managed to get a cheeky little win as well. So it's really starting to hot up in the WSL. Was there anything interesting for you in the WSL this weekend?
Well, because of my surgery, it's a rare weekend where I was able to watch 3 WSL games and actually keep across all 6. I'm going to talk about Brighton, West Ham, because it's one of the most impressive Brighton performances I've seen in a really long time. I thoroughly enjoyed watching us in that game. Rosa Kafaji is here, folks. She's here. She's playing football, and she's really good at it. Who thought? You just need a chance. That's all you need. You just need an opportunity to play. And I'm delighted that the Seagulls have provided her with that opportunity. The freedom she was given to roam. West Ham really couldn't contain her. But some really good goals, a really good team performance. I was really, really pleased with how we did to get the win. And a really different performance from the game we saw against City, where we were really resolute defensively. I know we lost 2-1, but I think we can take a lot of hope out of that defensive performance. It's good to see that Dario Vidicic is now not that stubborn. The fact he is able to change some styles against these bigger teams, which I think Martin Ho of Tottenham might come to realise. I understand he wants to implement his own style of play, especially this early on, but I think to be so open against a team like Man City was a really stupid thing to do. So maybe Martin will learn when going forward that maybe his tactics need to change against bigger teams. But on West Ham, I don't know what West Ham are, and I don't know what West Ham are trying to do. I think the problem they've got, and it's only 3 games in, and I know this is all reactionary at best, but Shakira Martinez is no longer a surprise package. We all know her threats, and we all know what she's good at. Managers can now game plan around that. And at the minute, they don't really have a plan B. And I think that can then you look at the rest of the team and you think, well, they actually haven't strengthened as much as we initially thought they had done. Will that come back to bite them? I'm not sure. But again, I think this season the WSL is a bit of a meh season anyway, because no one's really going to go down. So it's a bit of a moot point who finishes bottom, to be honest, unless you have, and to be fair, and if you lose a 3rd place in WSL2, you deserve to go down. So there's that. But no, I was really happy with how Brighton did. And impressed with Man City as well. I think that was another performance. I'm sure Liberty and Rob will talk about the Chelsea game and the Arsenal United game. But no, I was really impressed with how Brighton did, and I feel like we finally arrived in the WSL this season.
You are right to highlight that. That was indeed a good win. And Rob, perhaps another big game was Manchester City beating Spurs 5-1. They'd had a very good start, Spurs, but that is probably a welcome back to the WSL that Martin wouldn't have wanted.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. On Friday afternoon, I was actually talking to Connor and also one of our friends who supports Man City, and I said, this weekend will be a really good barometer for a couple of things. Number one, to find out where United actually stand this season, and number two, to find out what Tottenham are actually going to do this season. Because I think Tottenham, had started quite well. They looked good, especially the previous weekend's Everton, who themselves had a very decent sort of opening game, winning the derby. And a lot made of sort of Tamberg coming in. There's other quality in the squad in Beth England. Martin Ho bringing a really sort of, expansive style of football. And it was just bizarre. They just, everything they tried to do was wrong from minute one. It kind of just played completely into City's hands. Obviously, they did get a late consolation goal, and it was a very good strike from Vinberg. But sort of one of those where you kind of look at it and you're like, well, okay. Shame it's no clean sheet, but it's sort of not really anything. But City could have been absolutely out of sight. I'd be amazed if they try and play that way against, in the North London derby, or when they come against Chelsea, or even when they play Man United. Because I think if they do that against the likes of those teams, and even against other teams that are going to have quality attacks like Brighton, I think even if they do that, they're going to concede a lot of goals because they don't look defensively strong enough. Obviously, City have quality. I hope Lauren Hemp isn't out for a long time. But, they've got sort of such... I think people forget how good City's attack certainly is from a depth POV. Even if the defence isn't even there, you've got the likes of Mary Fowler coming back. You've got Alba Fagino coming in, who I think is one of the most, underrated players in the WSL. In all honesty, I think she's a, supremely good footballer and supremely good talent. You've obviously got, Minamar and Shaw in there, even though obviously Shaw the other day didn't score the penalty. I think she still did score from open play as well, I think. Let me just remind myself. Oh, no, she didn't. Apologies. Minamar who scored from open play. Again, there's so much attacking quality, and then you had Carolyn coming back as well. So I do think that was the problem. I will say, I actually did, on the way back from Kingsmeadow yesterday, I did watch the Arsenal Manchester United match. And I think it sort of says a lot that the two players that I came out of the game impressed with the most were Sandberg and Katie Reid. I thought by far they were on a different level to everyone else on the pitch. I thought Mallard had a decent, game as well up front in terms of leading the line. I thought Kim Little was Kim Little in that, just absolutely fantastic. But Katie Reid's, I think, performance and her ability to read the game for someone that young was supremely impressive. And I think for Sandberg, having the very difficult job of stopping Olivia Smith, she effectively meant that Smith always had to try and go inside. And okay, apart from one long-range effort that was very well saved by Valentine's Joyce, Smith didn't really manage to get a lot of change out of Sandberg. And then afterwards, when Kelly came on, she couldn't really get a lot of change out of Sandberg either. And later on, when Sandberg went off, it actually empowered Arsenal to try and attack down that side a little bit more. And I think it's a good sort of thing, a really good thing. Obviously, it'll be really fascinating with Katie Reid what Arsenal do in the next few weeks, because Leah Williamson is obviously going to come back to fitness. Steph Catley is playing very, very well and seems to suit the system very, very well. And most importantly, she covers when Katie McCabe goes flying forward. She's able to step across and cover in that half space. On the other side, I can't imagine they're not going to play Leah Williamson. So do you put Williamson into the midfield and try and put her in there? I feel it'd be very, very harsh if you drop Katie Reid, if Katie Reid ends up being dropped overall. I think she, performance-wise, she's probably earned the spot at the minute. And it will be fascinating to see how Slagers handles that element of it, because although obviously Leah Williamson, despite what people keep saying, is not the Arsenal captain, and even at the weekend I saw stuff referring to her as the Arsenal captain, which grinds my gears immensely. She's a very influential player and a key player in their squad. And when they come back to fitness, in a similar way, I think Chelsea have a similar problem with Sam Kerr and Aggie Beaver-Jones. Beaver-Jones is scoring so consistently at the moment, but Sam Kerr is Sam Kerr. And okay, she came on against the bench against Villa. She came off the bench at the weekend and got more minutes. You can't keep giving her cameo appearances. And again, I do wonder if she's in that situation. The other thing that Reid also, I think, does do is she's got the recovery pace, which some of the other Arsenal defenders don't have. And I think last season in certain games, they did struggle when players were able to get in behind. You saw it with Mallard. Mallard's pace is a very quick player, but Reid's reading of the game and her pace and her ability to recover was something that, quite frankly, I don't think a Leah Williamson is able to do. And I don't think Leah Cadena or Lotta or Moya are able to do it, to be honest.
Some very, very good points there, Rob. And Liberty, we've done a whole show on Man United against Arsenal, obviously, over on All for United, WFC. So if people want the Man United version of that, feel free to go over there. But I would be fascinated to hear from an Arsenal side of that, because we basically hit the point over there that we think that's a point gained for United. And 2 points lost for Arsenal, really. We did say you are the champions. Well, you're the Champions League winners. You're the best in Europe. And you popped up to tiny little LSB and you drew 0-0 against the team that, had to go through all of the qualifiers to get into the Champions League and all sorts, So poor old little Man United didn't quite go so well. I'm really intrigued as to what your point of view is. And I'll take the winding up part out, because you had a whole week to prepare for this. United.
Stop it.
It's true. So I'm only speaking the stats. You've had 7 days between games. United.
He's going to say we've got a bigger squad in a minute.
You've got a bigger squad as well. Exactly. You've got all of the people to choose from. Like, you're not sitting there naming players from the youth team that have got no chance of playing.
Don't forget they've got a manager nominated for, Manager of the Year.
Absolutely. And of course, our right back was actually our right winger. So how did you not manage to do better? Because I think both sides cancelled each other out. Do you think they were both just, let's not lose this?
Right. To start with the fact of United away has always been a tough game for Arsenal since United were promoted. That is a fact. And I've seen a lot of, Liv Smith was not great, this and the other. Well, the girl's grieving. Like, I think, call a spade a spade. Unfortunately, Renée Slagers has said after the game that both her and Taylor Hines were given the option not to play, and they both said it's what Matt would want for us. We're going to give it our all. I think people... I say this with a grin on my face because I understand why people say it. People have issues and opinions about United that do not represent what talent United have. People say, oh, they had to go through the qualifiers. Well, you had to go through the qualifiers because that's where you finished in the league. But if we hadn't have won the Champions League, we'd also have to have been through playing midweek qualifiers last week. But fortunately for us, we didn't have to do that because we won it. Sean, we did win the Champions League, if you didn't know. Just thought I'd let you know that one. A little inside joke between me and Sean and a couple of our friends. So the issue with United is not because they don't have the talent, because they do, because I think, Mallard is an incredible striker. They had Turland come off the bench after scoring a hat-trick midweek. As Barry, you've just said, and also Rob said, apologies, Sandberg has been really, really good this season. And also another player who's, gone through some hard times recently and is really showing up. And I think people have these issues and these opinions around United that don't actually represent. People act like United are like mid-team that somehow got to Champions League qualifying places and finished third in the table and got to an FA Cup final by luck. No, they're Man United and they're really good. The squad may not be the deepest squad, but it's a good squad. And I don't really appreciate this idea that somehow United are like terrible, because they're really not. Genuinely, your opinions on United as a squad, as a manager, they've also got a good manager who's actually really clever. No matter what your opinions of his comments are, actually on the field where it matters, he's actually very good. And so I don't particularly appreciate this idea that like Arsenal were expected to win because they won the Champions League, because I don't think that's necessarily true. Because by that point of view, we should beat everyone across the world. I don't really think that's particularly a good.
Maybe not across the world, but certainly across Europe.
Can I just say that defence there of Manchester United, Mark Skinner, is a more passionate and a more stronger defence than I've seen from a lot of United fans.
No, but
to be fair, I do agree to an extent. I think Skinner at times, like, he puts his foot in his mouth and he gets typecast as an idiot as a result of that, and then people don't give him credit for the stuff that he does do that is very good, like the fact that against Arsenal, I think he identified where the key creative forces were and he set out to nullify them. I also do think, from a pure neutral point of view, Arsenal need to try and move away from this like shoehorning Russo and Blackstenius into the same lineup together from the start. I don't think it works from a starting situation because the two of them just end up sitting in each other's spaces.
I think, yeah, I really didn't mean to go full on United defensive, but I just think sometimes it takes an outside voice who has no attachment to the club to say it how it is, because I understand that I probably do the same about Arsenal. I probably do the same about everyone that I care for, that you like are worse than you are. I don't really know, but United aren't bad, and Skinner and his backroom staff are very clever. And it took, against Chelsea last season, it took a penalty in one game for Chelsea to win it, and a free header from Lucy Bronze in that LSV game for Chelsea to win it. And outside of those two moments, Chelsea didn't really have anything in those two games. An Arsenal point of view, I wouldn't have started both Stina and Alessia. I understand why. On paper, I understand why, but I think the actual game state of it wasn't right because of how United look to defend. I think that's just, you just get it wrong. That's fine. It happens. Can't be right all the time. I also think, yeah, okay, you both won those games, but what I'm trying to say is that it took one singular moment for you to win it. It wasn't like you were on top the entire game. Actually, I found both games really boring, and it took a penalty to win the first one at Kings Meadow and a free header at the back post. Arsenal didn't have a free header at the back post. Anyway, I'm not talking about those games anymore.
This
Clearly
is
trying to annoy me.
absolute box office, Liberty. Absolute box office.
I'm already in a really bad mood and I'm really sad, guys. So can we not bully Liberty, please? I'm really trying.
All I'm going to say is all I heard there is that Arsenal didn't beat Manchester United because Manchester United are really good. So
Can I say something about Chelsea instead? About Chelsea from this weekend, like actually relevant Chelsea points.
You can. I'm just going to throw out, because I'm sure you've seen it, but people will want to know that Alessia Russo has come third.
I said that.
Oh, did you?
I predict. Oh no, not right now. But I told you before. I said third.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say I didn't think you said that in all that.
Not currently. I said it before.
But yes, they have come. She has come third. So there we go. Waiting to find out who the winner is, and it looks like it's between Bonmati and Caldente. But yes, feel free to go on about Chelsea.
Oh, I've lost my point now. I would like to say I predicted Alessia third, so I'm chuffed with that. I won't give the rest of my guesses away because it's not important. Chelsea at the weekend. I mean, first off, hats off to the Leicester keeper, Leipzig. No, that's a club.
Leipzig.
Thank you. I always get confused between her name and the football club, and I don't want to be wrong. She had a very good game. She's very good. I think people forget how good of a keeper she actually is. But many times last season, she kept Leicester in games or kept scoring very low against Leicester because she is a very good shot stopper, and she showed it yesterday. That being said, I am concerned about Chelsea's seeming inability to score more. In the same way I said I was concerned about Bayern earlier, I think it's impressive to win as many games as you do 1-0, but when you have the talent you have, you should be winning more than 1-0, especially against somebody like Leicester, who are going to really struggle this season. That's like if United are putting 4 past Leicester, so should Chelsea, because at the end of the day, you're both a top 4 club. It was. I'm concerned by this direction that Sonia Bonpastor looks to be going in. Is the same way she went with Leon. She's very set in her ways and she wants to play her football. I appreciate that. Absolutely fair. That's how a manager works. But sometimes you don't have the personnel to do that. And I think if you don't change it based on your personnel that you actually have available to you, then you actually kind of shoot yourself in the foot. I understand why she wants to play a back 3. Absolutely fine. I think there was nothing really wrong with it yesterday. I think Berman had a really good debut game. Congratulations to her. She's like about 18 years old, 19. So absolutely hats off to her. But I don't think the midfield works. I still don't really understand what she wants Kira Walsh to do. I know she got Sky Sports Player of the Match, but I don't really know why, personally. And I don't understand the direction. I don't understand why she wants to play. Obviously, Erin Cuthbert is Erin Cuthbert, and Erin Cuthbert should play no matter what because she's a very good footballer. But I don't really understand Cuthbert and Walsh and Captine. It's 3 quite defensively minded midfielders together. It's sort of like watching Arsenal men right now with Zubimendi, Rice and Marino, and I don't understand that either. Not nearly on the same scale because Captine can easily play as a 10, but I don't think it's the right choice, especially when you have other players that can do better. And I understand that Sonia Bonpastor after the game yesterday said that Sushinuskun is carrying an injury from midweek, but why has she had like about 4 minutes of playing time in the first 3 games of the season when she is single-handedly the most versatile player in the league? And I understand she said some things over summer that she might not have liked. Sometimes managers have to get thicker skin, in my opinion, and get over those sorts of things because it's really not personal incitement on you. And yeah, I understand why she wants to play the midfield the way she is, but I think maybe it's a thing of Michael Mano is a better 10 option or Nuskin is a better 10 or whatever than what is being played. And I just don't really understand it. And I'm concerned about her want to stick her claws in the sand and stick with how it is. because I think that hurts a team sometimes more than accepting that it's not working.
Tend to agree. For those that would like to know, Hannah Hampton came 10th in the overall for the Ballon d'Or there. Lucy Bruns was 9th, and Leah Williamson finished 7th. We still, according to the BBC, you lot might know prior to me, we still have not yet found out which one has won the award. But we are going to move on. Suffice to say that there is still the Sandwich Cup that is coming up this week. The first games of that are going to be played on the 24th and 25th September. So that's quite a big thing to remind you all that that is coming up. Obviously, none of us except maybe Sean care about this because we're not in it. So and it's a strange feeling for me.
Oh, look at us. Oh, look at us in our big clubs. Oh, we don't have to play any group stage. Oh, yeah.
Can I just say, Bon Matty's just won the Ballon d'Or as well.
Oh, there we go. Well done. I'll just say on the Subway Cup, this Sandwich Cup, right? It should be scrapped, first off. Can we all agree on that? And it doesn't matter what us little teams do, us non-Big Four teams. It doesn't matter what the championship teams do, because we all know who's getting to the final. It is one of Arsenal, one of Chelsea, one of Man City, and one of Man United. It does not matter one sodding thing what happens in these group stages, because none of us are going to get there anyway. So, useless cup.
Bless it. Honestly, I think Sean is channeling his inner Victor Meldrew today, and it's quite something. But I know something that will bring him out of his grump, and that is because I did say we wanted to run around some of the leagues, and I would like you, young man, to give us a little bit of a rundown as to what's been happening over in Wales with the Adran Premier. What's happening over there?
All right. Wasn't expecting
a little smile there, Liberty. It was like, oh, hello.
Yeah, we're only 3 games in, but hi.
I was having a giggle at your face because you were so surprised. You literally looked around like, you're talking to me.
I don't normally get this in the running order, so no, it was quite nice. 3 games in. Everyone's kind of been up and down. Everyone's kind of had a good game and a bad game, apart from Swansea. But Swansea had a game last week against bottom of the table Pontypridd that was called off halfway through due to a waterlogged pitch because, unbelievably, right, it rains in Wales. Shocking, I know. But Cardiff top. Wrexham, I think, will still do quite well this season. They've got some unbelievable. It's on a lot of WSL 2 quality players with Katie Barker from Newcastle, Newcastle's all-time goal scorer, coming over to Wrexham, along with Pakistan international Mariam Mahmood, defender Jodie Bartle. A very good team, but a surprising 4-2 defeat away against the New Saints on Sunday. A really good win for the TNS after losing to Aberystwyth last week. Cardiff City top of the table, though, after losing against TNS that first week. Back-to-back wins against Britain Ferry and Barry. So I think we've got 5 teams on 6 points after three games, which is always quite exciting. But still very early days. But yeah, it seems really tight to call this season. And I think Pontypridd and Barry are going to be adrift at the bottom, which I think will be a bit of a surprise to Barry. But Pontypridd is a very young squad. I think all season in these 3 games, they've only played 1 player over the age of 23. There's a lot going on at Pontypridd, but it might be a real struggle for them. But overall, an exciting league and still impossible to call.
Very good. Well done. There we go. And I'm pleased that we put a smile on Sean's face. That's a wonderful thing. Rob, I was just going to come to you with regards to the Spanish League, Liga F, because Barcelona they're all 4 games in, to be fair, but Barcelona are, some would say walking it again already. They've got a goal difference of 24 already. They're 4 games in. I mean, it's getting a bit silly, isn't it, really? I mean, they're just... We were all so
The thing
worried
is, whatever I say here, Barcelona fans will all criticise me. If any of them are watching, I'll get criticised for it. The problem with Liga F is you've got a point now where one team is so superior and dominant to them that regardless of all of the issues that have happened at Barcelona in the summer, and there have been significant issues, and I'm not trying to underplay the financial issues, the way they were talking about it was going to be some great levelling playing field for the rest of the division. It was never going to ever be that. Their squad is still light years ahead of everyone else, even though it's a lot smaller. The only time it might be really tested is in those really top European ties against the other top teams, and even then they've shown a propensity to be able to blow teams away if they're required. I think, in all honesty, I don't think it's necessarily a good thing. After 4 games, you've got a team with plus 25 goals scored. Like, that is... It just makes a mockery of any idea of competition whatsoever. It makes an absolute mockery of it, and especially seeing as one of them is, an athletic club team that is meant to be, last year finished 4th in the league. Let's put that, into context. That's the equivalent of, say, a Chelsea taking on Manchester City and winning 8-1. Or, going away to United and winning 8-1 and doing it on a regular basis. Now, I don't want to just sit and crab on Liga F, but I don't think it's like not good from a competitive standpoint, and I don't think it's good from like a viewership standpoint, because people aren't. I will come to you in a second, Liberty. I do think that it's like it doesn't encourage people from a neutral point of view to watch it, because there's only so many times, and Barcelona are brilliant to watch, don't get me wrong, but there's only so many times you can watch them just, hopelessly outclass and dominate an opponent.
Go on, Liberty, you wanted to clap back?
I don't have a clap back. I just have a clarification on Athletic Club. They've had a really bad start to the season. I know that's like quite obvious by that 8-1, but genuinely in all their games they've had it. They drew the first game 0-0. They drew at the weekend 1-1 despite one of their top 2 players being sent off in the first half because she decided to pull someone's hair in the penalty box. And it's a player I really like, and I'm very annoyed at her. An international German player. It's Bibiane Salsa Salon. No, I don't know why I'm beating around the bush. She pulled somebody's hair in the box and gets sent off, and I was seeing red. Honestly. But they have genuinely had a really bad start to the season, and it is obviously quite obvious losing 8-1 to a team that it took. Well, put it this way, in the same stadium, in the same fixture last year, it took Barcelona until the 90th minute to get past Bilbao. And then this year they won 8-1. It's like a night and day, and I don't really know what's going on there because they were decently close to getting Champions League qualifying places last season with Atletico Madrid. It was sort of between them, and then Madrid sort of just had the extra oomph and players to get there. But this season they've just really fallen off, and I am quite concerned about how drastically they've fallen off, because they've got 2 points and a minus goal difference of something insane now for a club that finished 4th. I don't have anything on the actual points about the league, because I think I have particularly controversial opinions about Liga FA that we really don't have time for me to get into.
Can I just say one final thing on it? And this, I think, is the most... If Barcelona continues scoring at that rate, they will end the season with 188 goals scored. Based on their current rate of conceding goals, i.e. conceding 1 every 4, they will end the season having conceded 9. So they'll end the season with a 179 goal difference. Now, I'm sorry, that's just not competitive whatsoever. And I know Barcelona fans will say, oh, you're just crabbing on Liga F and things like that. I agree there's competition further down Liga F. There are some very good Liga F teams that have really good clashes with one another. But it's not healthy for a division where you're literally coming into it after... They may as well, at the end of this month, just give Barcelona the title now. They may as well just do it, save everyone the fanfare, and just say, go ahead and see how many points you can get. And that is also partly why I don't think Liga F is growing, because is people like, I think from a wider point of view, casual European fans aren't looking to watch teams just absolutely, just wallop teams every single week. And I think Barcelona have a huge natural fan base anyway, so I don't think it really affects them. But I think you will start seeing a bit of a bubble emerging.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Sifway saying that's not going to happen, but you just never know. Like, you wouldn't have expected it to this point from now.
I mean, last year they scored 128, and this was allegedly in a poor season for them.
Yeah, no, I listen. It's going to be absolutely fascinating, I think, actually, to see how
Can I
the
just add, and it's rare I'm going to use Liga F and the Welsh League in comparison in terms of anything, right? And I understand completely the point Rob's making. And we've had it in Wales, right? We've had one team dominate for 4 years. And Cardiff City routinely beat teams 10-0, 9-0 every week. Is it boring? It did get boring, of course it did. But it does improve. The league does improve because then they say, right, we need to do, right, to improve on that result, we need to do this, get this player in there. And we've seen this season, Cardiff went 2 years unbeaten, 2.5 years unbeaten. Now they've already lost one game and they've been really close in other games in the past year. Look, one team winning a league constantly is not fun, but over time it will get there. And I understand it doesn't feel like that because Barcelona have won the league for God knows how many years. But Liga F will get there eventually. You just got to... It's that thing called patience, which and no football fan has. And I totally understand that. But it will get there, but I totally understand where Rob is coming from at the same time.
Yeah, not a lot of patience. You're not wrong there. And take that said, you should have some, so you should probably listen to them. Liberty, we're just going to throw it over to you for the final league, really, that we're going to take a little look at. And that is, of course, the Frauen Bundesliga, which is going great guns at the moment. There are 4 teams on 7 points. We've got Wolfsburg, who've been roundly put down thus far, but Werder Bremen, of course, and Bayern. But sitting pretty at the top is Freiburg, which is quite interesting. And what a game there was this evening as well. Just a matter of 7 goals with Frankfurt there, and who was the other team?
Leipzig.
Leipzig, that's it. So yeah, 7 goals there. How's the Bundesliga kicked off for you?
It's been interesting, actually. As I said earlier, Bayern drew 0-0 at the weekend. It took Wolfsburg until the injury time yesterday to get all 3 points. And today it looked like Frankfurt were just going to throw everything out despite going ahead. Yeah, they won 4-3 this evening against RB Leipzig. And you know what? I won't talk too much about the Frankfurt game because I could be here forever, because I think they're a product of their own undoing most of the time. But the introduction of Rebecca Blunkvist at Frankfurt after she left Wolfsburg has proven so far to be very good in my eyes. I thought she had a really, really good game this evening. Her pace down the wing really helped, especially because Frankfurt don't currently have Nico Anaomi. She is injured. She missed the Real Madrid loss last week away in Madrid. I'm not sure how long she'll be out. So to have somebody like Blunkvist, who has experience both in the league and also is very talented, is great. From a Sweden point of view, having her back is brilliant, and she's back to her best. Obviously, she was injured. She did her ACL quite a while ago now, it feels like, but clearly wasn't. But yeah, she's a really good start to her time at Frankfurt. So has Amanda Ilstedt. She now has 2 goals from corners for them. One in the first game and then one tonight. And tonight was a very good header. It was like perfectly placed by Mehmeti, who also scored, who also had a good game in my eyes. But unfortunately, Frankfurt signed a keeper last season to play this season, as in signed her. Then she tore her ACL. So they are potentially not working with the... Sean just looked up as I said ACL, like, hello?
I'll be honest, it's a sad thing to say. I feel this is the closest I'll ever be to being a professional player with an ACL injury. It's really horrific, but I understand the pain.
So unfortunately, they're not being able to play their like first choice, and that's not to say they have a bad keeper. She's just very, very young, and is not necessarily got the experience that a team like Frankfurt are going to be wanting out of a goalkeeper. She's only 20, and tonight she had a pretty bad error for RB Leipzig's first goal. So it's just character building though for her. And they got a decently kind Europa League draw, so I think it's going to be okay for them. Freiburg at the top of the table, I think, is on goal difference. There's about 4 teams on 7 points. But it seemed to be this weekend everyone decided that they didn't want to have a completely clean win all 4 games. Bayern drew, Freiburg drew. Everyone just sort of was like, nah, actually, we don't really want to be top. We're all just going to be on the same points and just do shit out on goal difference. Union Berlin have had a really decent start to their time in the Frauen Bundesliga. It was never going to be easy, but they had some really good signings, especially signings from players already in the league, like Tanja Pavlek, who signed after her contract ran out at Frankfurt. Obviously, a very experienced international player for Poland, but also very experienced player in the league, was the Frankfurt captain. And unfortunately had some bad injuries. So her time at the end was sort of mixed up a bit, but they've had a really good start. Are not bottom of the table. Union are 8th. Actually, all 3 promoted sides are not at the bottom and not in the relegation zones as it stand. Union are 8th. Hamburg are 10th and Nuremberg are 11th. With Essen, who are a decently big team in the league, quite well known, have had some really talented players come through them. Lena Oberdorf before she went to Wolfsburg and such. And Köln are bottom, and Köln have not won a single game. Have scored 1 goal in 3 games and conceded 5 and 0 points. So they are potentially a sign of worry. But it's 3 games in. I think I've said it's 4 games in about 5 times now. I really apologise for that. 3 games in. And yeah, that's the only sort of worry. But it's going to be an interesting season, both Wolfsburg and Bayern with new managers, and both will have Champions League stage games soon. Köln's only goal was against Wolfsburg, very true. Which is funny in itself because Wolfsburg also seem to like not want to keep a clean sheet or be particularly sound defensively, whereas Bayern had gone the complete opposite and decided that scoring goals was just not really what they want to do. But I think potentially this is the most even at the top league season ever. I don't think Bayern are going to run away with it like they have for the past 2 seasons. I really don't, because I don't think that's the type of football that the Bar Salah, the new manager, is really going to instill the same way as Strauss did. Apologies. I could picture his face and his first name, but not his surname for a second there. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think there are some players on the benches of some teams that I would be playing, particularly Smilla Vlato. When you are lacking creativity for Wolfsburg and lacking goals, I would play her. That's why you signed her. And subbing her in at 76 minutes is a bit of an insult. I'd also play Natalia Bidas, not made her Bayern debut at all yet. What's the point of keeping her if you're not going to play her? But that is my very biased opinion, because those are players I really, really like for outside reasons to the Bundesliga. But yeah, other than that, very interesting start to the season. And the cup games are coming up soon, and Bayern have Borussia Dortmund, which is very different to the men's football because Borussia Dortmund women are working their way up through the leagues. They started much further down and they are being promoted. This is probably going to be their biggest test yet against Bayern, which is really interesting. Obviously, a lot of history on the men's side, but not nearly the same amount on the women's side. So that's going to be really interesting for them. And Frankfurt have Victoria, a team from Victoria Berlin, a team from Berlin, who are in the 2nd division now, which is also going to be a very interesting game for them because they struggled against Bundesliga 2 opponents last season.
Yeah.
And that's it.
There we go. Well, very, very good. For our friends across the pond, I'd love to talk to you really more about the NWSL, but it just seems like nobody really cares. And by that, I don't mean the people around us watching it. I mean the teams playing. Nobody seems to want to really grasp the nettle and take that spot, because KC Current have done superbly well. They are, as we know, the only side who have confirmed their position in the playoffs. Everybody else can still get caught. You would imagine Washington Spirit are going to get there, but they drew against Angel City. It's just all kicking off in that position at the moment. There is still, 16 points between KC Current and Washington Spirit. And if you took those 16 points and took them off of Washington Spirit, they'd have 21, which takes you all the way down to 12th place, basically. So that just shows you how tight it is down there at the moment. So the top 8, as it stands, Current and Spirit, Gotham FC, Portland Thorns, San Diego Wave, Seattle Reign, Orlando Pride, and North Carolina Courage. But they're only there by 2 points. Houston dashed 2 off, along with Racing Louisville, who again had their opportunity but lost to Utah, who came off at the bottom with a cheeky little win there. They're having a really good end of the season. And then, of course, you've got Angel City, who are 4 points off of 8th, Bay FC 9. So you would think it's anyone out of those 4, but like I say, nobody really grasping the nettle. And yeah, do you know what?
Can I just say,
has been atrocious. You're not wrong. You can, Rob.
in regards to that, I think with me and Liberty can claim an assist here in that we came on when the announcement was made for nominees and both made big arguments for Seb Hines. And rightly, I think had a great season last year. But since then, I don't think they've won a match. So I feel between, if you would like an NWSL team to struggle next season, then get in contact with me and Liberty have very reasonable rates. We will happily big up your team and then, see them crumble to ruin. And I'm quite happy, quite happy to discuss it. Just get in touch.
They've dropped so badly. Go on, Liberty. Do you need to apologise?
No, I would like not to. I'd unfortunately like to bring more evidence to the case. The NWSL team I'm particularly fond of, as I think I potentially have said before, is Portland Thorns because of Tobin Heath, and they seem to they are 4th. No, 5th, 4th.
No, they are 4th. Yes, they're not going to be now that you're mentioning them making them big. They drop out, as we've just explained.
No, but they're the team I'm fond of because of old players that no longer play football, and they just sort of scrape by results and get really late equalizers against San Diego, which actually I think is quite unfair for me to say, because I think what Jonas Eidevall has done with San Diego this season has been really good, and a lot of people said when he went over there that his style of football would really suit the NWSL, and I think it's true. Unfortunately, they've had a bit of a hard time recently, 2 losses and then this draw. But before that, they were like up in 3rd. No, they weren't like up in 3rd. They were up in 3rd. And he had a really good start to the season. Unfortunately, it's a thing of people have figured him out quite quickly, and it's a bit harder for him. But yeah, I'm a jinx. I'm a big jinx overall. Anyone you want to play badly, just tell me and I'll say they've been playing good. And I've done it with goalkeepers. I've done it with everyone. I'll say, oh, that player hasn't scored against us in a while, and then they'll score. Call me. I'm a jinx.
There we go then. We very much look forward to seeing what jinxes you throw on next. Rob's unmuted. What you want to say?
Just on that note, I would say it's a known rule, you should know from Football Manager law, of that if you go on a player and you check their profile in a game that even if you don't recognise them or something like that, or you want to see how they will score against you. It's hardwired into the game. The game gods see you doing that and see, you're taking an interest in that player. Time for them to end their goal drought against you. And my worst one of these, actually, and one of my worst, again, on an FM tangent here, I lost an FM league by a single goal to draw into the team that were bottom of the league. And this was in the Bundesliga. I was doing a Werder Bremen save, and I got Werder Bremen. I lost to a Hamburg side who were bottom of the league, hadn't won for 4 months, hadn't scored a goal in game for 4 months, and I conceded to the third choice left back scoring his first goal. It's his first goal of the season. I look back, it was his first goal of his actual career as a regen. After 5 seasons, him coming in and scoring, and that is the lowest ebb I've ever felt in Football Manager.
It's outrageous, really. I think it happens all the time. You know, I used to constantly, when United were winning, send texts to the people we were winning against, usually against like Arsenal or Chelsea or someone like that. You know, you send one to your mate at half time. Oh yeah, have some of that. And then of course,
hang on, you'll talk about winning against Chelsea. I assume it's on the men's side here, because we know on the women's side that doesn't happen.
Oh, very much on the men's side, yes. No, we beat you once, I seem to recall, in quite an important game. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, but you would get that. So half time, you would have those sorts of conversations, and then you'd end up losing, and it was atrocious. I think all I can say to that to finish it off is that pride comes before a fall. Just not in this case, it comes with a fall. So there we go. Listen, we've been going for 85 minutes. We do somehow manage to waffle on this channel, which is amazing, because I didn't think we would quite manage to go on for quite so long, but there was a lot to get through. But we started. Oh, hello. The game after that one game you won, I don't know. I've kind of forgotten it. I suppose you're talking about the one where you won 6-0, but we didn't really care because we were hungover from winning the FA Cup, but we didn't let you win that year.
The WhatsApp voice note suggests otherwise, Barry.
So that's my guess on that one. But I've deleted most of the memories and data for that one. That has definitely been cleared from the old upstairs hard drive. So yeah, there we go. So it falls upon us to finish the show as we said that we would, because obviously the weekend has not been the greatest, and I just wanted to open the floor to Sean, to Rob, and to Liberty. I'm not going to go around like I usually do, but just in case there's anybody who has something in particular that they would like to mention, but that there's so many stories, so many things that we've heard about Matt Beard over the course of this weekend. Our head of media at Stevenage, he knows Matt Beard. He knew Matt Beard. He was someone who was incredibly helpful to him whilst he was trying to get into his photography and all of that sort of thing. And it's amazing, actually, how I've said before I came into women's football in 2018 when United set up their women's team. So I wasn't really all that au fait as to Matt Beard's history and what he'd done. And it really has sort of highlighted just what a guy he was, not just in terms of his management style and what he was doing there, but also obviously what he is like as a person. So I don't know if any of you guys had any meetings with him or met him or spoke to him at all, or if you've had any particular stories, but now is a good time if you have them to throw them out there.
The only brief couple that I do have is from someone from Chelsea who said that, you know, people talk about, on the men's side, they talk about Jose Mourinho and they forget that Ranieri laid a lot of the foundations. And they say on the women's side, you know, Emma Hayes came in and revolutionised the club. But so much of it started moving because Matt Beard was willing to go ahead and actually go back to people and put questions in and say, why aren't we getting this? Why aren't we doing this? You know, why isn't this available? And, you know, was actually all the way through a regular sort of confidant of sort of someone who Emma would speak to a lot, you know, spar on various cases on the touchline. And my other personal sort of particular memory of it was after the abandoned game a few years ago. I did say this at the time, and I still tweeted about this the other day. His first priority was about the player welfare and agreeing it should have been abandoned. His second priority was sympathising with the fans that had been put out of pocket for getting to London for an early kickoff in pretty horrible weather when it was quite clear that the game wasn't going to go ahead. And his third point was just pushing for the betterment of the women's game and saying that, you know, Arsenal versus or Chelsea versus Liverpool in the men's game wouldn't be called off. There would have been a solution for this. And I think it sort of typified him that none of that was about him or about how his plans had been disrupted, how anything he'd done had been disrupted. It was all about other people. And even then after that game, he got the entire squad. I remember the entire Liverpool squad came over and spoke to their fans. He came over and spoke to some of the Chelsea fans afterwards. And there was an element of an edge of frustration underneath, understandably so, because he'd done all the prep. But ultimately, he was still willing to have a joke about it and sort of, make sort of light of the situation. And I think it spoke very much volumes of it that every single person that has come out, people haven't necessarily come out and spoke about him as a manager, even though he was a bloody good manager and a bloody hard person to, Matt Beard teams are always one of those teams you looked at and you thought, I don't really want to play against this team because they're going to make it as difficult as possible, no matter what the resources that they have. They're going to make it as hard as possible for my team to do what they want to do. But above all, everyone's spoken about him as a person, as a friend, as a force for good in women's football. And I think the best thing and the greatest thing anyone can do to carry on that legacy is continue pushing that and pushing it forward, as that's what he would have really wanted.
For me, I've never had any interactions with Matt Beard whatsoever. When I started watching women's football in 2015, Matt Beard was one of the first people I saw on telly. Fast forward 10 years, Matt Beard is still there and still in really high-ranking roles with some of the best clubs in the country. And I think he says a lot that whether it's former players, staff members, journalists, fans, all you've heard is what a guy, what an incredible guy who always strive for the betterment of women's football. And you can't write the story of women's football in England without Matt Beard, I don't think. So we've seen it from an amateur profession all the way to now where it's professionalized. And I just would say just check in on each other. You never know. If you think of someone, even if someone you've not chatted to for years and years, just check in because you never know. And no, one thing you will be sorely missed, but just check in on each other.
I want to say something a bit lighter because I think everyone's a little bit sad. Obviously, there's absolutely no issue with that. I also never met him. I actually have never the only team in the WSL I've never watched in person is Liverpool. Don't know how I've done that. But this is really silly, but I am if you ask any of my friends, I love GIFs, and 9 times out of 10 I'll try and find a GIF to sum up what I'm trying to say or something funny. And one of my friends, Chloe, and I had this back and forth for potentially a year going on at this point, where my most used GIF I sent her was a GIF of Matt Beard. And it's him at Liverpool, him walking up to the camera and like outside training and just smiling. And no matter how I was feeling, how anything, I would send that. Because it became a bit of a thing where I would send it and her immediate message back would be Matty, because we genuinely just was so fond of him that like no matter what we were talking about or anything, I would send that and it would just be okay. Not in like a sense of we were arguing or anything, but just like genuinely, if we were having a crap time, I would send it and we would just smile because he was smiling. And if you look up his name on the GIFs on Twitter, there is like several of him doing the exact same thing, walking up to the camera and just smiling and just being like happy. And I think that says something that people will say he was a brilliant manager. He was a brilliant manager. He was a brilliant man, but also other than very few times I never saw him be particularly angry, even after a loss, even after big losses. Excuse me, I'm soaking my mouth. He was still level-headed and calm, and I think that is something that I am trying to implement in myself after games. And I think that's something that I would take from watching him and how he interacted with people, especially after games where it was not easy and it was hard for his team and it potentially wasn't right on the day. He was still level-headed, he was still calm, he was articulate even in moments where he was frustrated. And I think that's something I'm going to take because I think it's easier said than done, and it's a very admirable attribute to learn from somebody who had so many admirable attributes that you could learn from. And once, as Sean said, just send a hi, how are you? Been thinking about you. Doesn't even have to be a how are you, just I've been thinking about you. because that could really change somebody's day, especially if they are secretly going through a hard time that you don't even know about. And I hope that everyone watching and has watched tonight is okay. And if for whatever reason you aren't, I won't speak for the boys, but send me a message. I will try my hardest to help and whatever I can. But yeah, I hope everyone's okay.
Absolutely. As we said, Matt Beard, a guy who has been in the game for the women's football for getting on for 20 years, starting out at Millwall, he was at Chelsea. I believe he took them to the FA Cup final. He had a stint at Liverpool. Then he went over to America for the Boston Breakers before coming back and joining West Ham United. He was the interim manager at Bristol City. He then went back to Liverpool. He got them out of the Championship. He was manager of the year there. He was also manager of the year in the WSL when he managed to lead Liverpool to 4th place, demoting Manchester United to 5th. Well done, Matthew, the only person to stop us from ever being 4th or above in the league. Of course, he went off to Burnley, and it did not end as happily, perhaps, as everybody would have liked that too. But it just goes to show that you never know what is happening behind all of this. You've got people even sat here who might be completely happy on the outside and showing a very different side of what is actually going on. And I echo fully what Liberty has said and what Sean has said there. It's time that we really start thinking about other people and stop just thinking about ourselves. It's so easy to do because life just flies us by. You know, it's really busy. None of us do it on purpose. But I think it's really important that we do, as we said, check in on people, because we need to say these things to people whilst they're still here. Matt Beard was an incredible coach, and I would like to think that he was told that on numerous occasions by these same people. And it's lovely to see how loved he is after it's happened. But actually, just tell people. Just tell them how absolutely brilliant they are. I did that in the middle of this show by explaining just how thankful I am to Liberty, to Rob, and to Sean, and to Freya, and to Gareth, and to John, and to all of you guys that come along and help make the All for Wofo community. He is a guy who will be incredibly missed. And usually I would go around at this point and ask you to follow all of these guys and get them to do their shout outs. Today's not the day for that. Today's the day just to remember that these guys are brilliant, but Matt Beard was someone that really cared about women's football. And there's 4 people that are sat here that also really care about women's football. I think it's appropriate to say rest in peace, Matt Beard. You're a legend. And if we can have half an iota of the impact on women's football that you had, we'll be leaving it in a much better place.